Hello, everyone. It's me, Kirsten. The microphone's on. This is the It's Giving Mystical podcast. And this is your podcast for the week ahead, the week of February 13th. Friday the 13th, Valentine's Day, the week of this long anticipated lunar lunar new year, the official entry of the fire horse, this new moon. I think it's an Aquarius that everyone's jazzed up about, all happening. That's all the same thing, basically. And I just want to take a second to remind everyone of where we are in February and remember that the energy that's ruling us, the weather that's ruling us right now, is the High Priestess and the Hangman. And the High Priestess is always going to be about your intuition. It's always going to be like, what do you know, even when you can't measure it or can't prove it or can't make it visible? And we're talking about that this month a lot in Mystic Rising. We're working with Priestess energy. And it's just at this moment in history, this moment that we're sitting in, it's very interesting to notice, particularly as a woman, the way that your subtle intelligence, your subtle knowing has been so accurate. And it's interesting how for me right now, I can really see what's happening on the world stage. And it offers me a very deep reflection on what I've agreed to against my intuition or against my knowing or against my subtle intelligence. So it's like I've said yes to these stories or these ways of being or these roles because the world was saying that's right. And we can measure it and we can show it to you and we can articulate it super clearly and we can point to it and say that's real. And there's something interesting about the deconstruction that's happening, as horrifying it is in some ways. It's actually very interesting and it can be really validating. Like, oh, I felt that. I knew that was off. I knew that was unsafe. I knew there was aggression there, or I knew there was a lack of care there. And yet I knew that whatever the thing is, fill in the blank, whatever you were picking up with your, so to speak, spidey senses, your feminine intuition, and there was a truth to it, even though you couldn't quite find a narrative placement for it. And it's worth noting in the realm of trauma research, actually, this is what I did my graduate work on, was trauma resolution. And one of the things you note about trauma is that the brain stores it differently. However clear we are about this, part of what our conscious mind is doing is it's weaving a story. It's telling the story. And traumatic events don't fit the story. They don't fit the pattern. And so our brain stores them differently. And one of the ways that I studied trauma resolution, one of the ways I worked with people with trauma resolution was to tell the story in a way that could almost, quote unquote, make sense of the trauma. Because what happens is then you store that memory differently. All of a sudden, something that was totally out of whack, didn't fit into your schema, didn't fit into your worldview, was suddenly something that you could locate. And this idea of location is super relevant right now. And this is one of those things that you're either going to get me or you're not going to get me. And maybe you'll get me on some level. If you get me a little, that's enough. This idea of locating ourselves. When we're in High Priestess energy, we're swimming in the void, we're swimming in the subtle realms, the realms of intuition and dream and symbolism. And we're in this Hangman energy again, so that's a reversal, something that we thought we knew or we thought was truth, getting flipped for us, and we see differently. We're experiencing things from a totally new perspective, and in many ways it can feel like an Alice in Wonderland, like an upside-down world kind of experience. So when we're operating in that weather field, in that atmosphere, we can have a hard time locating ourselves. It's both of those energies are disembodied energies. We're entering Pisces season this week. So there's just this pull out of our bodies. And that's one of the things I love about Aries energy. Aries is fully embodied. I am here, right? And so I'll be curious this week how that shifts. But I know for me this past week, my shaman teacher called me out on it. There's a way in which I'm refusing to be located. And that can mean lots of different things. But the idea is if we locate, we have to feel what's happening. And sometimes, this is dissociation, right? A trauma response or something happens, or even just the overwhelm of daily life, we stop locating. We pop out of our bodies because that's a survival strategy. It's a way of keeping ourselves safe from the intensity of the embodied experience. So just noticing those things, like noticing where your subtle intelligence is coming online or what it's saying to you, where you're maybe having a new relationship with your intuition, a new relationship with your subtle knowing. And I hope a deepening trust with it. Like I hope a sense of, oh yeah, fuck what the world says. This is what is true for me. I feel this. And not in a, isolating, passive aggressive way, but in a, this is true. I don't necessarily need to make you wrong for it, but I'm also allowed to know that this is true. I'm allowed to know this is my experience. This is my impression. This is the impact it has on me. And then also this idea of locating, noticing where you're choosing not to locate, being curious about the opportunities you have to locate. So meaning like, where are the places where you can come back to your body, where you can re-enter your system and hopefully have space to feel the intensity of that in a way that feels clarifying or healing or loving or just attentive, just like attentive to my own experience. I give myself permission to carve out spaces, sacred spaces, where I'm allowed to attend to my own experience, my own humanity. And that's what I would say about that. Okay, I'm going to talk about everyone's favorite topic this week. The card I have for us is the Five of Pentacles. And the Five of Pentacles is a card of lack. It's the card of feeling excluded, feeling outside of love, outside of the community, outside of, in the old words, we would say God's grace. The feeling I always have with this card is a time where I was in a difficult place before my divorce. And I woke up one morning just really shattered by everything. And I remember praying and not being able to feel God. Normally, I have a very tangible, experiential knowing of God and of source and of spirit. And I really always will remember that one morning where I woke up and I was like, where are you? Like, I can't feel you, God. I can't feel you. And it was scary. It scared me to be in a place where I reached for something that would anchor me or ground me or love me, and I couldn't find it. That's how I found Gay Hendricks' book, if you don't know that story. It was like, I can't find God. And I literally was on my knees by the side of my bed crying, where are you? And I heard a voice say, go to sit by the fire and listen to an audiobook. And I was like, that's not what I need you to save me, fix everything. The voice was like, just go sit on the couch. And I went and sat on the couch and I opened up my phone or something, some kind of device, and I pulled up Audible and there was a book there. It said The Big Leap. I had never downloaded this book. It was my Audible account. Like, this book should have never appeared for me. I had never heard of it. And I was like, all right. And I turned it on and Gay Hendricks started his little story about Zone of Genius and all of that. And I love that book. I quote that book all of the time. I refer my students to that book all of the time. And that was my experience of being like, I can't find God, and God being like, go open Audible and call it a miracle. There was a book on my Audible that I didn't know, and Gay Hendricks' voice, I don't know if you know that, he's like this like kind of elderly, grandfatherly voice, completely brought me back. And it was similar to my girlfriend saying, go make soup. It's interesting how at crisis moments, it's the simple things. It's like the listening. And that, again, that's that subtle realm. It doesn't make sense that when I was in deep crisis, the answer would be to go sit on my couch by the fire. That's the opposite of what we think. We think we need to go into like high functioning mode, we need to fix it. And so these subtle things, so the subtle realms, but also the subtle movements, like, girl, go chop some onions. Girl, go sit on the couch. We really want to be with ourselves in that way. We want to hold ourselves with that level of tenderness and lack of urgency. Okay, so that's my Five of Pentacles story. But the Five of Pentacles in the traditional deck is two figures in the snow. Welcome to February in New Jersey. In the snow, one looks like they're crippled. They have a crutch. They're both in tatters, and they're outside of a church window. There's so much to say about this card. It's a card that I've spent a lot of time meditating on. It was somewhere in my chart for a while. And it was a card that I felt a lot of sadness around. And so I spent a lot of time with this energy. And it has so many, I mean, all the tarot cards, so many layers to it of what's happening. But the basic premise is that you feel outside of the warmth. You feel left out in the cold. You feel on your own. And one of my favorite things about this card is the human will to continue. And it's so beautifully pictured in this card. The idea that we're not alone even when we feel alone. There's two people in the card. And that we keep going. We keep going even when all conditions point to take a break. There's something enduring about the human spirit that's pictured in that card. But mostly that card is a picturing a invitation to explore where lack lives, where exclusion lives, where abandonment lives in your psyche and in this moment. When the Five of Pentacles card shows up in a weekly energy, we're being invited to get curious about our stories regarding lack. And usually, lack with pentacles is going to have to do with money, body, space, safety. It's going to have to do with earth energies. And the fives always have to do with change, conflict, freedom, liberation, creativity. So the fives get a bad rap because there's a momentum to them and a lack of control to them. But usually there's a change happening for a reason. There's something that wants to break free. They have a little bit similar to a devil or a tower energy in terms of numerology. And the creativity that's unleashed when you break free. So the Five of Pentacles is going to draw our attention to where we feel lack with our money, with our body, with our home, with the things that we can touch with other people. So the things that we can actually touch in the world. Time is going to be here too. So in ways you're feeling lack around time, the pressure or scarcity mindset, which we all know can show up in the most insidious ways and the sneakiest ways. The Five of Pentacles is like, there's not enough. There's not enough for me. There's not enough for us. It shows up in anything that has to do with resources, anything that has to do with measuring and evaluating and putting things in a hierarchy, particularly people. There are people who deserve to be inside, people who don't deserve to be inside. That energy comes up. So the Five of Pentacles is really about the things that divide us and the ways that is encouraged by not seeing the universe, the world, as the abundant, creative, generative place that it is. Individuals, communities, collectives, the world, the earth. There's something about the Five of Pentacles that wants to shake us out of our dreams, our illusions around the ways that we're excluded, the ways that we lack, the ways that we are not loved, the ways that we've been left behind. So that's just going to be here. You're just going to notice that this week. The question to ask yourself is, where is lack showing up for me and what is that like? Where do I feel outside of love? Where do I feel outside of humanity, maybe even? Where do I feel that there's just not enough for me? And this can show up again like in sneaky ways. So it can be a hoarding tendency because if I don't think there's enough for all of us, then I'm going to be really active about pulling enough resources to me. This is the isolationist idea of I have to protect mine. And listen, a larger thing that's happening in the world right now, particularly in the self-development, self-actualization, is I think that we've gone through this tunnel, this gauntlet of the individual, like doing our own healing, taking accountability for our work, centering our authority in our own hearts and our own bodies and our own beings. So a lot of people still have to do that. They're still on that train. But the next stop, the next station is about how do we heal as a collective, as a community. We were really tricked into thinking that if we healed ourselves, all would be well. And there's a basic foundational assumption there that we can ever be an individual, that we can ever live outside of relationship, outside of community. That's partially what we're here to experience and understand in this go around. So I bring that up because part of this lack mentality, part of this abandonment mentality is to get into those rooted beliefs. Like there's not enough for everyone. I could be outside of love because you can't. The idea of me not being able to find God, that's not true. So these are stories or beliefs or neural pathways that are just present for us. And the Five of Pentacles usually highlights those. And the other thing is, the Five of Pentacles is one of those cards that it behooves you to have a sense of humor about. Because if you look at the Five of Pentacles, like flatly, take it at face value, it's just hard. It's cold, it's dark, they're injured, they're on their own, they are tattered, like it looks messy. And so you want to have the sense of humor about it, which I know sounds a little crazy, but it's true. What I always think about is we don't know. There's emotion to the card, and we don't really know what's around the corner. Like, they might be 5 steps from the inside of a warm church with a hot meal. They have each other. They're on their feet. There's still fight in them. There's still spirit in them. And you don't want to forget that. So even when you have a day where you're like, oh, I can't find God, or you have a day where you're like, I'm on my own, or you have a day of like, I'm running out of time. Yeah, but you're aware and awake enough to have that thought, to have that knowing. And this comes back to my new best friend, Bad Bunny. But this idea of celebration, joy, dancing, community as an antidote to the harm and the extraction and the toxic individuality that's so prevalent in our culture, prevalent particularly in America. This idea that we can fight the revolution with joy, with community, with beauty, with art is so relevant here. And so this is where this one foot on the dance floor comes in. When the Five of Pentacles is up, you can be like, whoosh, they should just give up. Dude, it looks awful. Just put yourself in the corner of that dark, snowy place and see you later. And the Five of Pentacles is like, dude, keep going. Don't be your own like dark hole, your own black hole. Yes, we have days where it's hard. We have days where we feel on our own. And what? Like, and so what? Welcome to Earth School. We're all going to have these difficult days. And it's like, yeah, but what do I want to do differently now? What am I learning from that? What else is there? Gratitude practice, which can sound so cliche and so simple. And yet we're working with this, I think, with High Priestess as well. How urgency lives in your body versus spaciousness. It's the same thing. How lack lives in your body, how scarcity lives in your body versus how abundance lives in your body, how gratitude, how possibility, how creativity lives in your body. And I have told you guys this before, and I do this a lot with women when we're working together. But locate that. Take a minute after this podcast, close your eyes and think, let me just feel lack. What part of my body tightens, or what happens to my breath, or what happens to my skin or my spine? Track that. Understand how lack shows up as a physical movement in your body, and then have the awareness and the breath to say, what else? So if I can also feel abundance, what does that do to my body? I just felt my hips just totally drop, right? Or can I feel gratitude? Where does that show up on my body? Can I feel spaciousness? Can I feel possibility? Can I feel hope? And you just track. These words hold an energetic resonance to them, some more powerful than others, depending on where you are. And this is what shamanic tracking is. We're just noticing, where do the words hold energy and what else is possible? Because it's not the energy that's the problem, it's the tightening around it, it's the locking into it, it's the inflexibility of it that causes us the pain. So Five of Pentacles in a week, the thing which you always hear me say is be kind. That quote, like people are fighting a battle you can't imagine. Everyone is going through something. Everyone is afraid of something. Everyone feels alone in something. So it's not a pass for cruelty, but it is an invitation to compassion. It's an invitation to curiosity and patience. And we don't have to make it harder for each other, for ourselves, and for others. So that's an invitation that's up here. Journaling, spending some time thinking about lack, where lack's showing up in your life. What's that like for you? What is the language around that? And what is the counterbalance to that? What else is possible? What else exists in this moment? To not get too locked into this idea of hopelessness or lack or scarcity or abandonment. And then I love the Mother Peace card, because it's like, take that energy and put your hands to work. Take that energy and go make some soup. Take that energy and go clean up your yard. Take that energy and start a new craft. Take that energy and go give someone you love a massage. Take that energy, because there's a kind of rumination to it, and bring that energy to the world. Make beauty, make art of that extra energy, of that excess energy, of that tightness, of that overwhelm. That's like the beautiful invitation of the Five of Pentacles. Again, like, it is hard. We have days where it's really, really hard. Full stop. And what? And if I still have energy in me, what do I want to do with that? Do I want to overwork it and punish myself for the fact that it's already hard? Or do I take that same energy and go put my hands to work? And the Five of Pentacles is about transformation of the material plane, the Five of Earth. So challenge, change, liberation, creativity, freedom. happening. And I'll say to you again, the High Priestess and the Hangman, there is a transmutation, a perspective, a deep perspective shift happening. And I can feel this in my own body. There's something settling in me around relationships because we all know I'm like starting to open my heart and body and space up to partnership again. And there's something about that I just am approaching that so differently. And I can't even articulate for you exactly what that is, but I feel it so clearly in my body. And so for you, there's probably some similar thread. Like you're just approaching something differently, and you know what's for you and you know what's not for you. And you have patience when neither is true, right? Like you can say your clear yes, you can say your clear no, and you're not in a rush to discover or solve or fix the things that are in the in between. All right, my friends, this is supposed to be a powerful week. Friday the 13th, Valentine's Day, this new moon. It's just going to be an energetically exciting week. And keep an eye on your mental space in regards to judging yourself for the ways you might feel lonely, or there might be scarcity showing up, or you might have a sense of lack. Maybe bring compassion and your hands to that versus continued persevering or continued shame or judgment about what you're experiencing. Let yourself experience it a little more lightly, a little more, oh, look, me human, it happens. Okay. I send you so much love and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.